Hi everyone, welcome to An Hour with LawSikho. With me, I have Tanisha Deshpande, who is an expert on marketing for law firms and lawyers, and she helps them. She helps a lot of independent lawyers as well as law firms to establish a good presence online and also to communicate better with their existing and potential clients. So we will be talking about this only today, that how a law firm can look at their marketing, and there are a lot of myths around marketing, and we are going to address them today, and basically how today's law firms are actually handling this function, how lawyers can do better in this aspect, and with the possibility that advertising bans are going to be soon removed in India, just like any other uh, developed countries and developed legal industries. And there has been a proposal to that respect by the law ministry, and also it is not done yet, but we can expect that sooner or later this will happen, as foreign lawyers are allowed to participate in the Indian legal market. So marketing and advertising will become like a reality, and will become like a inevitable necessity. So, Tanisha, welcome to An Hour with LawSikho.
Thank you so much for having us, Ramanuj. Appreciate it. Thank you to all the viewers who've logged in right now and those who will subsequently watch this. So, yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right. So, you are a lawyer, and you started your career as a lawyer, and then you got into marketing. So, we want to hear about that first from you. That tell us about your academic and professional background, so that our viewers can relate to you better.
Certainly. I'll be happy to introduce myself. So, I'm Tanisha. I went to Government Law College here in Bombay. I practiced the law soon after graduating, practiced it for about 3.5 years or so. I practiced primarily, I did corporate laws. There was a point and phase in my professional journey where I realized that I didn't enjoy what I did. I also very quickly realized that I was not half as passionate about the law as a lot of my other peers and batchmates were. And that is when I sort of started asking myself more probing questions. It's extremely difficult to acknowledge that you don't enjoy something after you've spent 5 whole years studying it and then another 3 years in the practice of it. So like a total of 8 years. But I chose to take the slightly offbeat path, acknowledge to myself that I did not enjoy it, and I wanted to look at other avenues. Being conservative and slightly traditional as I was in terms of career choice making, I decided to stick within the legal space itself, which is why I said I'm not going to practice the law, but let me help the business of law. My biggest platform at that point, luckily for me and a lot of others like myself, was Bahura. It's where I began my non legal journey in the business of law. It's a legal recruitment firm primarily. I thoroughly got great exposure there, fantastic mentors and friends. That is where I began my non legal career. I then moved over to the HR and BD side primarily, focusing on that with a law firm, with a top tier law firm. Then I surprisingly moved to sales at LinkedIn because I wanted to see how a sales and a BD cycle ties in, and then have come back to the legal space to now tie in all of that experience. So it's been a journey where I've had to take some hard calls, but it's been exciting.
So you have worked with quite a few organizations, and you have even worked with LinkedIn.
That's right.
Uh, so what's your experience in terms of how organizations today and law firms today look at marketing and business development? And this is quite different from, I believe, how things were, say, 10 years back or even 5 years back.
Right.
Things are changing quite fast. So if you can give us some insights about that.
Sure. So what happens is typically Rule 36 of the PCI rules prevents lawyers from advertising, right? Because they believe that we're a noble profession and we must not advertise ourselves. A lot of people believe that advertising of your legal services is actually vulgarization of those services. Now, that was Rule 36 back in the day. The understanding around the space and the law has evolved. In 2008, post liberalization, the BCI brought in a proviso allowing for us to actually have websites, share some of our contact details, share the practice areas we function in. So clearly, they saw that there was a need to evolve with changing times, right? So law firms can actually now legitimately have websites, and there's nothing wrong with that. So that dialogue, I think, in 2008 really underwent a massive change. The change from there on was law firms used to traditionally earlier on they didn't believe in advertising too much. All their clientele primarily came in through just word of mouth, references, old relationships with promoters. That is how business came in for law firms. Suddenly, after we were hit by that whole recession phase, the legal industry in India only underwent a very massive change. The change started in very small ways. It started with law firms starting to suddenly sponsor a lot of moots, coming onto campuses to talk about pre-placement offers, internship offers. Then they sort of transitioned into spaces where you suddenly saw a lot of well-known lawyers on television talking about very hotly debated topics, and they would freely opine. Then they started writing articles. Then you started seeing websites come into play. You started seeing a lot of lawyers actually actively attend a lot of conferences. New conferences were curated specially for the legal industry, and the attendees were well-known lawyers of repute, and they were all astounding successes, all those conferences. So I think that's how the dialogue within the legal industry also gradually but surely changed. What we see today of law firms from maybe even 5 or 7 years ago, there is a huge change in just intent, right? Today, managing partners, junior partners, those on the brink of partnership, everybody sees value in business development, in marketing, in branding. Some of us may understand the why, some of us may not understand the why, and we can address that a little later. But largely, that is how the dialogue within the legal industry has changed. Another major reason for the dialogue changing is at some level we know that the possibility of foreign law firms coming into India is fairly high. It's hotly debated, and we know that sooner than later it probably will happen. In consonance with that, I think Indian law firms realize that if they don't start talking about themselves, if they don't talk about the great work they do, if they don't establish their brands today, when the gates do open to foreign law firms, it'll be a very flooded market. And then to start the process might be a bit too late. So I think that's another reason the intent has changed.
Right. I think that's very insightful. You have, really in a very concise way narrated what is exactly going on in the market today. Uh, where do you see, the position of like big law firms in the market? All of them almost have dedicated personnel. They hire a team for business marketing, but they call it business development, and they almost all of them have business development teams with sometimes people from consulting background working or people from marketing background working there. And so they have multiple people working on business development. What do they exactly do? I mean, what's the modus operandi there, and what's their job?
So, unfortunately, to this question, there is no standard answer. It really differs from firm to firm, from partner to partner, from managing partner to managing partner, right? Fortunately or unfortunately, I think there's a lot of ambiguity around what support functions, as they are called at law firms, do. When I say support functions, I don't just mean BD. It typically will entail human resource, it entails business development, it can also entail corporate communications, sometimes admin, and sometimes IT as well. What happens is that, firstly, I don't think there's a very clear demarcation and understanding of each of these functions itself. So I think the first problem is people don't understand that BD will not do admin and admin will not do HR, right? So I think that distinction is unclear. That's one issue. The other issue is that, like I said, there is no standardized process today. In corporates, for example, when somebody says, I'm part of the human resource team, they will probably get further probed and asked, so are you talent acquisition? Are you operations? Are you comp and benefits? Are you a generalist HR? In the corporate world, roles are extremely defined because the law firm space in all of these functions is still evolving, and we have a long way to go. I can tell you this. So there is no clarity, like I said, but to broadly, for the sake and benefit of our audience, having been at the receiving end sometimes of this lack of clarity, I'll take the liberty today to explain what each of these functions do. So your HR team, or human resource as they are called at a law firm, will typically take care of staffing. When I say staffing, I mean acquiring new talent. That's one of their roles. That's maybe 60% of their role. The other 10-20% may be dedicated to just operations, in the sense joining formalities, exit formalities, interviews for exits, interviews for people that they are empaneling or bringing into the team, understanding from partners that you're hiring for within the firm, and in corporate parlance it's called the hiring manager, understanding the hiring manager's needs, what is the kind of resource they're looking for, staying in touch with the market, with the trends in the market, with what their peers are doing on the HR side. Of course, operations and accounting and compensation and benefits is another big part. What we also largely see now is that HR teams are also gradually but surely becoming invested in employee engagement, and that's becoming a very big piece. Especially with corporates, we've seen that employee engagement has become a very pertinent dialogue. However, law firms haven't entirely picked up on the concept of employee engagement, but it's extremely exciting for me personally to see that some of the clients that we service actually care about their lawyers in a way that is quite endearing. So, for example, there's a law firm that gives out a fruit every evening because, don't eat garbage, don't eat junk. There is another law firm that actually has catered snacks coming in every evening. There is another law firm that is extremely high on diversity. So they actually allow for extremely flexible working hours for their women workforce, which, who are perhaps working mothers. All of these are very small steps towards employee engagement. They're definitely not what the MNCs and the big, large corporates of the world do. But I do feel that it's an enduring step in that direction. So that's HR. Moving on to BD. What BD business development and marketing folks at a law firm will do. And like I said, there is really no standardization, but I'll try and sort of make it crisp and, roll it all into one for you. So BD executives or managers will take care of probably developing business, which is they may be in charge of actually writing into new potential clients to see what is it that the firm can do for them. They may, in order to do that, make perhaps pitch documents, maintain lists of all the experience statements, maintain lists of the kind of work the firm is doing. They may even go ahead and perhaps submit deals very regularly to various publications and league tables. The other thing that BD managers may sometimes do is help the partners plan their foreign visits, because there is a lot of importance today on referral work that comes in from foreign law firms. They may also write in to foreign GCs and such to set up meetings when their partners are traveling. They'll also probably take care of corporate communications. When we say this, what we mean is they'll reach out to various newspapers, publications, perhaps get them a slot on a speaking slot somewhere on television, perhaps, right? So all of that. And then there's, of course, the conferences and events piece that they take care of, where either they are hosting a conference as the firm, so they become the internal point of contact for that, or if the firm is sponsoring a certain event, or members from the firm are going to the event, they will ensure that all of that goes smoothly and they actually build relationships. They're well networked at these conferences. So that's another part of BD. So that's broadly the BD gamut. Admin, I don't like the word admin at all. I like to call them workforce managers, and that's actually what they are. They are managing your workspace, they're managing your workforce, right? They make life simpler. मुझे प्रिंट आउट चाहिए. My computer's crashed. I don't know where to go. I have a conference and all the conference rooms are blocked. Oh my God, what can we do now? These are the guys who are literally your ninjas, right? They will run to your rescue for every little thing you need, from a staple pin to as something as large as maybe holding on to a conference room for you and managing your clients if you're, say, running late from another meeting. This is admin, as law firms may call it, right? They run your office space. They make life convenient. They make it easy. They basically take care of office operations for you. They will probably even go ahead and book tickets for you. They will take care of all your bookings for conferences. They will ensure that your staff is in place, your stationery is in place, all of that. So that's your workforce, guys. Then there's, of course, IT, which takes care of everything that you need, from um, your pen drives being enabled to your laptops functioning to various software being there. Most law firms have their own software, so they will ensure that that's working smoothly for you. You understand IT, largely taking care of everything information technology related.
Right. So I know, why you would want to like explain this at such detail, because of course very often, people who are working in the business development functions, they are expected by lawyers to do the job of the HR or support function, or maybe of the admin's job from time to time, which is like a big misconception, and it's a sad thing, because people who specialize in BD, they bring a certain value on board, and when lawyers don't understand that and they mix you up with other functions, it's probably very painful and sad. But moving on, like mostly we hear that law firms are allocating more money to their BD budget, or their the marketing budget, and this is something that I keep hearing from my law firm friends, people who own law firms, even boutique law firms. They say that oh, I'm doing an event, but this is no big deal. This is like 10% of my marketing budget, and seems that maybe law firms have woken up to the fact that they need to have a marketing budget in their plans.
Right.
So how is that working, and where is this budget spent in your experience most of the time? I mean, I
Right.
think that's a great way to identify what people are really putting their premium on. So,
So I think most law firms don't even know that they need to make a budget to begin with. A lot of it is very ad hoc, sadly, even now. A lot of it is extremely relationship based, or it's feeling based. There could be a publication that really persuades a certain law firm. They go ahead and sign up with them maybe for a year or two, right? They may or may not necessarily do their research around whether this is a good publication to pay, or to have a paid listing with, or to in any way engage with. Similarly for conferences, right? So the research level per se might not be very strong, which is why I say that it's a little unclear whether they even understand the concept of budgeting at this point for marketing entirely. I think there are some firms though that have started doing it, and they primarily break budgets down into maybe 3 or 4 segments. So I think there's one that they do for conferences, one that they do for publications and paid listings on various portals such as the Chambers and Partners, ILFR, or any of these. The other is, I think, events. A lot of law firms, especially the small and mid-sized firms, see a lot of value in doing events for their own clients, and that's again part of the marketing spend. So a little small presentation, maybe of half an hour, and then a short, cocktails or wine and cheese event. That's also part of the budgeting. Then there's also budgeting that they account for in terms of branding. So when they say branding, they could be talking about paid services online for branding in terms of a LinkedIn, or any other of these other portals that they see value in. Branding could also entail some amount of PR and communication with various newspapers and portals, both online and offline. So I think broadly, this is what their budgets get divided into. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
So,
my bad. There's also business trips that they account for, both whether it's travel, domestic or foreign. That's another part of the budgets that they factor in.
okay. So, if you can tell us more about, how these, like, in your experience, what is the usual? I know I'm going maybe a little in a difficult territory, but what's the kind of, split in the expenditure, like in your experience? So my experience is that most of the big law firms now have a clear marketing budget, that they have CFOs and they have their financial plans very clear. All of the big firms, even tier one, all of them, and tier two firms also now. Interestingly, I'm seeing many of the smaller new boutique firms also having, even if they don't have a clear budget for the whole year, but they do some sort of allocate some sort of monthly kind of budget to kind of the BD and marketing ideas.
Sure.
Sometimes it just means that the partner is going to a trip to a different country trying to develop business there, but something they definitely have began to like kind of
Correct.
allocate some resources to.
Sure. So I think if
So,
you were to draw
in
a pie chart for that, it would probably be a large percentage would be for the business development trips that their partners take overseas. And that budget has to be high because obviously it's an expensive proposition. The other is definitely conferences and speaking at panels and events. Speaking slots are again extremely popular, and also they're fairly expensive. So that's the other. Then there is a marketing budget, like I said, for these events that they run. And then there is a PR budget, like a very clear public relations and copcom budget that they have. So I think these would be the broad areas in which their spends are. But like I said, the largest being, of course, the BD trips that they do.
Got it. So, like, this is something very interesting that, law firm partners are spending a lot of money on business development trips. And this is something that they see as something to bring in good clients from foreign jurisdictions who are looking to do work in India. So, what do they exactly do in these trips, and what's the strategy, and why are these trips so successful?
Sure. So I think these trips are primarily taken for broadly two reasons. One is, of course, to take the brand outside of the home country, right? To tell another jurisdiction that, hey, you know what, we are XYZ and partners, and we exist, and this is the kind of work we do, right? So there's a branding piece to it. The other is actually getting work. So referral work. There are a lot of referral relationships that these firms look to establish. When we say referral relationships, what we mean is they go to the visiting jurisdiction and try and establish a relationship with different firms there. They will have tea, coffee, dinner meets with different partners at different firms in that jurisdiction. And they will try and build an equation such that there will be work coming in and referred to them as and when they go along. So that referral work is another piece. The third piece is that they try and meet global GCs, right? General counsels. So a lot of general counsels may be sitting out of jurisdictions such as Singapore, Hong Kong, various Southeast Asian countries have become hubs. London, of course, is another, right? So depending on where the firm is looking to really grow its business, or perhaps a particular practice area, basis that they will decide what kind of general counsels they wish to meet and market with. So these one-on-one meetings end up really helping to build some kind of solidarity between the firms. The other thing that it helps them do is cross sell. So, for example, they may be in a referral relationship just for M&A. But let's say on home ground, they've now started believing that infrastructure and real estate is tying beautifully into the M&A piece, right? So they will go there and talk more about those practice areas, because M&A, they've already established credibility, right? So then they probably send partners who are doing more real estate, more infrastructure, give them face time, introduce them, and get them to talk about their businesses and enhance those practice areas in those jurisdictions.
Right. So you also said that conferences are a lot of conferences are happening, and even law firms are organizing their own events. How does this work for business development, and what's the whole
So
you
again,
know
right? Honestly, Ramanuj, a lot of this is about networking. It's about being seen. It's about visibility. So there are two things. If you're hosting a conference, that's great too, because then people look at you as somebody who can actually pull off hosting an entire conference. So there's show of strength, there's show of capability. You get to then show off all your various practice areas, your various partners, the various verticals. If you have different locations, you can probably bring them all together. So you have offices in Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai. Bring all of that together under one roof, and it's like one big show, right? In a way that you put out, and it's a show primarily to flaunt strength, to flaunt ability, all of that. The other is where you send individual partners to different conferences, who again in turn go network, talk about the kind of work the firm does, various practice areas that are developed and that are developing, right? All of that. So I think largely these conferences are a great way to per se network and to become talking points for you really of everything that you do, in a very informal setting also, right? And it's very endearing to see when so many peer law firms, competitors, are all under one roof and everybody is extremely cordially going about their business. GCs are extremely, general counsels are extremely open to hearing, not just from tier ones today. They're very interested in what mid-size and small-size firms have to say. And that's also very endearing to see, because they see that with the mid-size firms and the small-size firms, they, as a service, right, they probably get higher partner time. So they're very interested in talking to their partners to learn more from them, and what is it that they can provide. So it's all in all, these conferences are, we would peg it as networking more than anything else.
So, when people are going abroad for foreign trips, does this work only for bigger law firms, or are smaller law firms also succeeding with this strategy, in your opinion?
So you'll be surprised to hear that actually a lot of small and mid-sized firms see value. They have budgets and they have the money, and they do make these spends, and they actually manage to reap benefits through these spends. So it's like I said earlier on somewhere, right? It's about intent. Everything finally boils down to intent. And I think if your intent is in place, then all the execution will just miraculously keep happening. Because if you have intent, you will keep doing very extensive, research. You'll hire the right people. You'll basically hustle to make it happen, right?
True, true. No, actually, from my personal experience, I have seen that there's a friend of mine who runs a small boutique 5 people law firm in
Interesting.
Bangalore, and he travels once in 2 months to at least one foreign jurisdiction, usually places like Dubai, Singapore,
Correct.
Hong Kong,
And,
Mauritius,
yeah.
so places with a business connection with India. So if he hears that India Canada trade is going to go up for some reason, he'll probably make a trip to Canada. And that has been, at least he has been continuing to do it for a long time. So clearly it's working for him. Otherwise, why do such a thing?
Correct. Correct. And
But
so does it many others. Yeah, I agree. It's,
okay.
I mean, I'm going to take a minute here to share an interesting story. One of the firms that I do know, it's a three-partner firm. It's a mid-sized firm. Partners are extremely well-known lawyers of great repute. They've all worked with tier ones at some point in their careers, and really established themselves. But they're extremely, pardon me, they're extremely media shy. They're extremely conservative, so to speak, to talk about their work. And they often, would tell us that, we don't want to be out there. We don't want to talk about ourselves. They were hesitant to put themselves on LinkedIn. They didn't want to put pictures. They didn't want to put the name of the firm. They wanted to be so shielded. And with a lot of conversation, a lot of persuasion, we sort of egged them on to become a little more media friendly, got them to write an article and feature in a newspaper, enhance their LinkedIn profiles, sort of started talking to them more and more about the importance of doing this. And you'll be surprised that in one of their meetings with a client actually brought up one of the articles one of the senior partners wrote. And the client was primarily an M&A client. And the client said, hey, you know what? I didn't even know that you do real estate. And we've been struggling with RERA, and there's so much ambiguity around it. And we read that article in XYZ newspaper, and it was just so insightful. And we had no idea that, somebody that we talk to almost every 2 weeks is a storehouse of information and an expert in that space. I remember the look on that partner's face, right? That partner was elated when they were sharing this story with us, because they suddenly saw value in all of the exercises that we sort of pushed them to do. And for us also, it was a huge success, because to be able to convince a non-believer into a believer takes a lot. And it did take a lot with these guys. But this is the beauty of BD, right? Cross selling, that's what happened on that particular journey. The firm did not actively talk about the other practice areas. Their clients didn't even know that one newspaper article changed things around. This huge conglomerate suddenly started giving them all their real estate work. Leave alone give their work, they actually made so many other referrals to these partners. So business is booming. That's good.
Great. This reminds me of another story. So there was a very young lawyer. She was practicing in cyber law. Now she's considered one of the best in the country. And back then, so I suggested to her that you should start writing some blog posts, and she did write 4 or 5 blog posts and started sharing the same on her LinkedIn and Facebook profile, more than a Facebook profile. And then next time I spoke to her, what she said is that I got 3 cases from my own housing society. I
Wow.
said, why is that? He said, see, people knew that I'm a lawyer, but they didn't know that I do cyber law. And when they read my article, my own network, like people who know me, like my friends, my family, my college friends, my school friends, they discovered that I do cyber law after reading these articles.
Correct.
And after that, I am getting referrals from my own network. And that I think is very important. In most cases, your people who are very happy to refer matters to you actually don't know what you do and what is your area of expertise. Like, I think most lawyers who are specializing into something, their parents don't know what they actually do.
That's
And that's
true.
a big problem.
That's true. That is so true. In fact, we also had another lawyer, an independent lawyer. Again, he wrote for a couple of newspapers. Rather, he got quoted in a couple of newspapers around a very critical issue, in matrimonial law. And I won't dwell too much into the details, but largely he's an expert in the space. He's never talked about himself or the kind of work he's done. And he's actually serviced some extremely well-known, industrialists, celebrities, all of that. And then one or two quotes from him in a newspaper here and there. He actually got another 5 to 7 referrals, through his existing corporate clients. So again, cross-selling. There was a firm that hadn't talked about the work they did. Suddenly they started reporting the work they do. Within a year and a half of its existence, the firm was ranked in the top 40 RSG list. Now that is truly a success story. And that's, again, it's just about talking about what you do in the right spirit, with the right intent.
So, what is too much? Like, there's also this whole issue of people doing too much marketing. We do know some lawyers who do get kind of on other people's nerves by doing too much marketing and kind of do it wrong. So,
Correct.
what is what not to do in this?
To be honest, with social media, even with the Facebook, leave alone the professional context, even in the personal context, I think boundaries are very important. And what happens is, in an overdrive to achieve, we sometimes forget those boundaries. Before we post something online on any of these media, right? Whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, whether you're blogging, I think firstly, when you do post when you're in a calm sort of frame of mind. Don't post when you're agitated by something, when something's really playing on your mind. Don't write it then and there. That would be one very good way to pull back content which is very aggressive. Another way to do it is, I think, to promise yourself that you will, uh, again, this is extremely personal, so I can't suggest any specific number. But I think promise yourself that, like for me, I try and limit my posts to maybe one post a day on LinkedIn and nothing more. Sometimes not even one post. I'll probably do alternate days of posting on LinkedIn, right? Because I don't want to spam my network. For example, blogging. Some people blog every week. Fair, do it, but how relevant is the blogging that you're doing, right? So I think constantly checking in on the relevancy of your content, determining the frequency of your content yourself. These are important ways to sort of pull back. And like I said, write passionately, but don't write with aggression or anger. So I think these are three good ways to keep your writing in check. Of course, another thing I would really encourage, and I've seen this with a lot of lawyers, they love arguing for the sake of arguing, right? It empowers them. It makes them feel like, the Harvey Specters of the internet. So I'd really encourage everybody using various media that, don't get into unnecessary debates. Don't get into unnecessary quarrels online. It's a very poor reflection of who you are, right? So there will be people who will opine on your articles, on what you share on your blogs. I think the wise thing to do is say we can agree to disagree and leave it at that, rather than feel the need to constantly, consistently badger and argue, just to turn around and say, hence proven. I think completely refrain from proving a point on the internet, because you will meet a lot of trolls, you'll meet a lot of people who literally seem to have enough and more time to just do this online, right? And I'll tell you something, it's very easy to get into arguments in the virtual world, because it's faceless, sometimes it can even be nameless, right? So I think just stay away completely from that kind of conversation. That's another important tip I'd like to share.
Got it. Okay, so tell us a little bit about PR strategies that law firms should develop. Like these days we see law firms and lawyers appearing a lot on the media, and while I suppose it's there may be some gray areas as to what is ethical and what is not, but it's clear that most legal practices and lawyers have started to have a conscious PR strategy around what they do and how they do it. So can you tell us a little more about that?
Right. So to be honest, I don't think there is a clear strategy necessarily always that's put into play. It's really about what is your expertise, where is the value add that you can bring, right? And that is when journalists will reach out to you, or you will reach out to journalists. I don't think you can dictate to your PR guys how and where you should be pitched. I think it's a very, very organic process. It'll just happen when you have your relationships in place. You build them, you nurture them. They will reach out to you when they see value to a particular topic that you can add. It is just simply about nurturing those relationships. It's about keeping in touch. It's about helping them in an hour of need. It's about simple things like they may reach out to you not because they need your expertise. They may reach out because they need somebody from your network. Will you turn them down then? Because then shame on you. Because it's not only about your PR, right? It's also about a journalist trying to get new innovative stories to their readers. So I think it's important to honor that also. So I think largely it's a relationship more than anything else. Just like you treat your clients, you must treat your PR and communications and journalists as well, right? Treat them with respect, stay in touch, help them when you can, and of course seek out their assistance as and when you feel the need to. So it's a very mutually benefiting equation.
Great. So, what's the like for a small law firm which is trying to grow?
Mhm.
what should be their, what systems do they need in place, or what kind of workflow should they have in place to ensure that business development and marketing and all these things are happening smoothly. uh, Maybe everyone cannot even have a dedicated resource for this. So what are their options, if you can throw some light on?
Definitely. So, firstly, I don't think that these functions, like a function like this, especially for a mid or a small size firm, really needs a full time resource. My recommendation would be get somebody who can come in a couple of times a week, get somebody who has experience in the space and a deep understanding of the space and relationships in the space. Get somebody who has very hands on done different parts of the BD piece in the past, right? So that they have a more holistic view. That would be my recommendation in terms of resource. In terms of what you should do, I think there are some very simple steps. One, use the LinkedIn portal well. uh, Reach out to me to understand more. I'm only joking. So use the LinkedIn portal well. Definitely, write as many articles as you can. Put them up again on your LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever social media that you use, those platforms. Also, put them out on your individual LinkedIn profiles. Send them out maybe in a concise form, sometimes if you like, as client insights or client alerts. Try and stay in touch with your clients. That is the biggest, most important part of doing BD. And I'm sorry that we haven't addressed it so far, but I'm going to talk about it now. So a large part of BD is actually your clients. You're building, developing business, right? Where will that happen from? Your clients, existing and potential. How do we do that? So do you have a client feedback mechanism? Do you speak to your clients often? I often like to talk about how in HR they talk about a candidate journey. On the BD side, I like to call it the client journey or the client experience. So you're a service provider, you're not a product. I can't use a soap or wear a pair of shoes and determine whether I like you or I don't like you. That is not how we will decide brand loyalty, right? But brand loyalty will be determined by how your clients are left feeling about what you do to them in terms of service. So, simple steps. When a client signs on, do you have a primary point of contact you give them? Often we have various multiple points of contacts in an organization. It's very frustrating for clients to talk to multiple stakeholders. Tell them that, you know what, 24 by 7 on email and within business working hours, this is the number you can reach, and this is the person you should be speaking to for any kind of assistance or escalations. So give them that comfort that, you know what, we care about you. How corporates have relationship managers, look at it in that kind of a model, right? Like when a bank, when you're banking with a bank, they'll give you a relationship manager who'll frequently call you, check if everything's going okay, suggest investments. Do that with your clients, give them that primary point of contact. After that, through the transaction period, needless to say, over deliver, but don't in any way, I'd say, under promise but over deliver, right? So at no point should your client feel like they're left in the lurch. At no point should they feel like you're inaccessible, you're not responding to emails. If you have certain boundaries in terms of, for example, let's say you don't work weekends, I think upfront it's important to clarify that to them, rather than through the transaction period trying to make adjustments or then weaning your way out of work, because then you seem like a work shirker to them, right? So I think set expectations extremely clearly with your clients, have that open honest dialogue, and then during the transaction also check in from time to time. Apart from the guys executing, you should have a third party completely neutral, perhaps from the firm, checking in and saying, hey, you know what, how's it going? Just wanted to check. Is there something else we need to do? Is the team hands on? Are they helping correctly? Do you require anything further from us? So just making them feel like they're cared for, right? And then in the end, after your transaction is done, thank them. They gave you business. Send them a simpliciter thank you. They've closed maybe a deal worth many crores and it's important to their function. Send them a bouquet of flowers or a box of chocolates, right? You've been a part of that journey. So I think upon closure also, continuing to engage with them after that, send them, like I said, client alerts and insights. Read up about the industry, right? So if it's a pharma client, something exciting coming up in the pharma space, as lawyers, you will know before they will know that there's a certain regulation or notification that's going to kick in. Give them a heads up, give them a call and give them a heads up. Definitely engage in dialogue throughout, right? During and post transaction. That's definitely one very, very critical way to maintain and develop your business. So I think that really is what I'd say, on this piece.
So that's quite a bit of work, Tanisha. Like all the things you said, most lawyers are already overworked and busy, and I mean, I don't think most lawyers will find it convenient to spend even more than half an hour or 1 hour a day on their own, to extra than what they already do. So I'm going to ask you two questions. One is that, let's say somebody does not have any resources. It is very much possible that it's a young lawyer who's trying to build his business, and this process is as important for them. Like I think more important for somebody just starting out, trying to build something up from scratch. And so for them, what should they do? Let's say they can spare half an hour a day or 1 hour a day. What
That's,
should they do?
that's more
So,
than enough. How many?
so
So,
one second, 1 second. That is my first question. And second question is, when they reach the position to hire somebody, okay, say what should they look for, and what kind of expectations should they be having? So these are two stages. So the first stage, when say I am starting a law firm or starting my own practice, not firm, even if it's an individual litigation practice or whatever, what could I do to ensure that I'm doing all the right things?
simple, extremely simple. Use technology. It's always there to help us, right? Maintain a simpliciter Excel sheet or a Google document, share it with your partners or your team. Put down the names of all your clients. How many clients can you possibly have, right? If you're starting out, you probably have 30, 50, 75. Put them all down in one list, right? Then sorry, then assign people to different companies or to different points of contacts at different companies. Break that list up among yourselves. Decide whether you just want partners to be reaching out. Decide if you'd like for even your senior associates to be reaching out. Accordingly, split that list up. And a very simple rule, the rule could probably, I like, at LinkedIn we use this a lot, used to use it. It's called ECEM, every customer every month. So ensure that once in the month somebody from the team is reaching out to the client in some way, whether it's a phone call, whether it's an update. That's all it takes. Keep that list open. Keep that list open every Friday evening or every Tuesday evening or Wednesday morning. And as an exercise, just get together in a room, perhaps if need be, and at an assigned time in the week, just sit down and make those 5 calls, because every week you will make nothing more than 4 or 5 calls, right? So it's just that simple. It sounds extremely unmanageable and it sounds like a Herculean task that you're being put to. But if you actually put pen to paper and you put a process behind this, this entire client mechanism, it's actually very simple to pull off. So I think for small lawyers and startups, that's what I'd say. Put that process in place and treat that process as noble, literally, as hygiene, standard, have to do all of that. Moving on, let's say you move to the next stage where you want to actually hire resources. I'll further probe your question, Ramanoj. Hire resources to do what? Just this piece, or generally BD and other allied functions? What do you have in mind?
To do BD, like say, what are the most important things? Maybe somebody can't do everything, but maybe the top three things they should do, because
Sure.
something is nothing. So yeah.
So I think the top 3 things when you're hiring a BD professional for your firm or for you as an individual lawyer that you should definitely look at is, one, their own ability to communicate, their own ability to, how do they talk? How do they carry themselves? How do they hold a conversation? Do they make eye contact? These are very small things, but they go a long way in establishing trust. So that's one. Two, remember that this person is a representation of you and your firm. So whoever you hire, please ensure that the ethos that this person operates out of is completely in sync with your ethos and the firm's ethos. So if you believe that I must treat my client like, customer is king, that's what you believe in, and you hire somebody who's very casual with your customers, who doesn't answer customer calls, or I mean client calls, or is extremely non-responsive and laid back, will reply after 3 days, it's a complete misfit. They will take your brand name only downward. So ensure that the ethos is aligned and there's a cultural fitment with this person you hire. So communication, culture fitment, and thirdly, I think, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm going to have to say this: some amount of experience, most definitely, because it's important to bring somebody to the table who can draw your attention to something that doesn't occur to you naturally or that you don't have the time for. So this
Got
person should either have experience, or at least they should have this very they have to have this fire in their belly to say, I want to put your brand on the map. Because then they will go out there and research, they will go out there and make relationships on your behalf. They will operate out of that sense of, very deep sense of belonging and commitment. And I think that is very important to be able to do in this space.
Okay. So, when you suggested that somebody could hire a professional for 2 days, somebody who comes 2 days a week or 1 day a week, and maybe 2 days a week, let's say, somebody comes and works out of my office, helping me to manage all these processes. I don't think there's any rocket science behind any of these. Many lawyers, I see that they understand, what has to be done. But most of the time, where I see a lot of gap is that they're not actually able to do it and manage the process, simply because it's always a question comes down to, should I draft another contract, should I go for another client meeting or a call, or am I going to do all this? And the
Correct.
answer is usually obvious that you're not going to do
Correct.
this
So I
at the same time is very important. So let's say if they do hire somebody, I understand they still have to be involved at some level, because the BD person is not going to bring your business. You are going to do it with support and with help. But to run the process, if they bring in somebody and somebody is working, let's say 2 days a week out of my office, what should I be expecting to pay them, and what should I be expecting from them in terms of deliverables? And
so
I
this
understand that different people will be charging different, but give me some idea.
To be honest, this is a very tricky question, because firstly, it really depends on the type of firm. It depends on the stage at which the firm is in terms of their own BD process. Are they
Let's say
extremely
young firm with no processes. Like that's most of the lawyers in India. So how would
a
you say
young
they
firm
people
with
who are already a little ahead of the curve, they know what to do? I mean, this question would not be relevant for them, I guess. But somebody who's looking to start things in this domain, in business development, marketing, what should they be looking at?
So I think when they're starting out and they're a really small firm, and let's say somebody's coming in even maybe once or twice a week, anywhere between the range of perhaps 35 to 50, 60 odd thousand per month is what they should be looking at a part-time resource.
You said 30,000, right? 30 to 50
So
or
there's
support. I didn't.
I'm giving you a broad range. So I think the range would be anywhere between a 35 to maybe 50 to 60,000 per month. That would be a starter, completely fresh starting range. Somebody who has absolutely nothing. They have no partner profiles. There's no firm profile, nothing in place. So I think for a firm like that, maybe that's the value we could be looking at.
Okay. And if they want to hire somebody full time who's going to work like throughout the week, so then what would they
So,
be looking?
to be honest, I'm very uncomfortable answering this question because it really depends on the kind of experience also that this person is bringing to the table. Is it
Of
a
course, some range, like if somebody's working for obviously 5 to 6 years, a lawyer who has left their
oh,
corporate law career, somebody like you obviously will be charging more. But give me some, what is people charging right now in the
so
industry?
I
I'm sure
think
you.
fair amount for somebody who's maybe had 4 5 years of experience and is starting out again at a firm like this and is going to be a full-time resource, you're saying, we probably will have to pay anywhere perhaps like a 80,000, 85,000 would be a good figure to look at to keep them happy and motivated.
Right. Right. Okay.
So I
So, and
sorry.
what like for those who are looking to get into this area of expertise, for them, like I we have some questions. Actually, we'll be taking them soon. People are asking, like law students are asking, if we want to do this, then what's my what should I look at as a career opportunity?
Sure.
So what is like the earning potentials in being a law firm marketer? I know this is going to have a tremendous potential in the future as things open up more and the market matures even more. But as of now, where do things stand?
So, I think the important thing is to understand that if you do choose to be a part of this space where you're in the legal space but you're not a practicing lawyer, um, first and foremost, remember that you probably in the initial few years of your career will not make as much money as your peers and friends at law firms will. It is extremely critical to understand this, to accept it, and to live with it, because it is that one defining decision that you're going to make, and you can't afford to be miserable once you've made the decision, right? So while my peers maybe 3 years ago had hit the many lakhs mark, I was in the many thousands mark, perhaps. And that was okay because I made a choice to not practice the law. And I'd accepted that, one of the pitfalls will be that I will not make as much money. One of the pitfalls will be that, when I hang out with lawyers and non-lawyers both, I will be asked, why did you then study the law? And I think in those moments, you have to be very confident and say, you know what? I studied the law because it's a great undergrad degree to have no matter what else I choose to do with it. Right. So, a lot of conviction. You'll have to work on your conviction. You'll have to learn an understanding that monetary remuneration may not be the same as peers and friends. And I think largely to be able to succeed in a career like this, you'll have to be okay to be treated slightly differently than your legal counterparts, and your growth may be slower. You may or may not find great mentors in the space. You will have to do some amount of shuffling, moving around. You will also have to spend a lot of time networking, because that's how you learn. You'll network, you'll speak to people, you'll read online, you'll watch a lot of videos. So you'll also have to be extremely self motivated, because the space is so nascent. There's very few of us who even understand what's happening, right? So I guess if you're ready to take on all of these, so to speak, challenges and be able to, live with them well, then you're good to go.
I think honestly, like the situation is going to change, and it's already changing. And especially once the law firm, that foreign law firms start coming in, all it's going to absolutely change in India,
It is. It's
and
going to
it
spin
could be
around
a
on its head.
yeah. I mean, it's going to be really great. Like legal marketers are going to be really uh, in high demand, and there will be very few people who would be actually ready to take the mantle at that point of time, because there's hardly anybody who's doing it right now. So yeah, I think the future is bright. But right now, at the moment, things may not be looking as awesome, but
Absolutely.
I think it's a matter of time. But
It's
that's how it is.
brighter.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying something.
I said it's only getting brighter. So don't, those interested in this space, don't worry about it too much.
Correct. But probably it's a good idea to not join this right out of your college. Probably practice for a few years. It will really help you to understand the work
Yeah,
that goes on, and even to get a better salary and network and everything. Because
correct.
honestly speaking, nobody trusts somebody who just graduated from law college unless you are. I know actually one or two people who have been able to do it, but that's like you have to be extremely
Fun.
talented. Like maybe you're fantastic at networking or some natural talent is already there. That's a different case, but it's a unusual scenario. Would you agree? Like that's
Well, yes, maybe helpful to spend some time practicing the law. I mean, that's how I did it. I'm not entitled, but I do know of people, some of my colleagues and friends who've plunged straight into the BD space, and they've done well. They had to, like I said, take on a certain amount of brickbats in the beginning, but if you can withstand that, you succeed. So is it necessary for you to practice the law even if you don't want to, just to do this? No. You can directly start doing this, and there's enough of a fortunately, there's actually enough work opportunity in this space now. So that's the great part.
Right. Okay, so let's take some of the questions. It's already 9 o'clock. We have a question from Donny Ashok, who is asking uh, how to get started as a BD executive in a top law firm.
Okay. Wow. That's ambitious. And so it really depends on the law school that you're graduating from. It depends on the networks that you have. If you have alumni from your law school at that particular firm that you're targeting, write into them, try and see if they can get you an interview, try and see if they can open some doors for you. To be honest, Donnie, don't focus too much on getting into a tier one only. I think even if a mid-sized firm is providing you with an opportunity, take it, right? Because we often get caught up very badly with this tiering that we've done for ourselves. Tier one mein kaam karna hai. I only want to, be associated with a tier one. The sad part is, while the tier ones are great places to work, you will also learn just as much at mid and small firms with greater partner involvement, perhaps. With maybe more time for longer discussions, with more time for mentoring, perhaps, right? So I think it's a complete myth that we all chase the tier ones or the firms that brand themselves and market themselves as great places to be at. I think do some intensive research, see where the good BD professionals actually work. Don't focus on the tier of the firm. Focus on the function of the firm that you want to work with, and
Yeah,
try
I
and
also think that for it is very important to see which law firms are serious about this and innovative about this, and
absolutely,
they rather
absolutely
than a lot of big law firms really don't care so much about BD. Like there are law firms
correct.
that have a system, they have a budget, and they do the bare minimum, and
Yes,
there's nothing you can contribute there except for pushing a pen. Like you can just keep the wheels
absolutely.
rolling and
Yes.
really don't get to do anything else. So
Thanks, Ramanuj. Very well said. Truly.
okay. So we have Bharat Bhushan Bharadwaj asking how to manage all this work with flow and not get stressed after work. This is a
Sorry,
lawyer asking
that
like how not to get stressed after so much work. I mean, like if you have this much of work to do for business development, a lawyer is asking like how do you not how do you manage all this and not get
I think I
stressed?
just compare it to my friends and peers who are practicing lawyers. And when I look at their lives,
Practicing
I'm
lawyer
like,
asking, the practicing lawyer asking that now you have given us more work apart from the legal.
okay. Sorry, I misunderstood the question.
Right.
Well, practicing lawyer, Mr. Bharadwaj, I'm very happy to take your question because I've been itching to talk about this and Ramanuj hasn't given me a chance. So thank you. Basically, there is a myth around how lawyers can't find the time to do BD. Oh my God, you're adding to our stress. What you don't realize as a practicing lawyer is that when you do these BD exercises, when you do, deal reporting, when you do article writing, you're not just building BD for the firm. You are actually building a brand for yourself as the individual lawyer. And that is something most lawyers forget or don't realize. And what better than your own law firm providing you with a platform to do it? What more could you ask for? They're telling you set aside some time to write articles. We're encouraging you. They're telling you set aside some time to report your deals. They're telling you set aside time to attend conferences and we'll pay for those conferences. So I think Bharadwaj, is that the name? I think
Right.
change the way you look at it. I think you have to stop looking at it as, oh my God, one more task to do versus, oh wow, an opportunity to actually do business development. Another very critical point is when you are actually being made partner, right, at any of these firms, how does the switch from the one rung junior to a partner, let's say it's a principal associate, associate partner, senior associate, at different firms, different designations, how does the switch really happen? One of the most important KRAs for that switch to happen is your ability to bring in new business, is your ability to do business development, right? So I think change the way you look at it, understand the perks around it, and it won't look like so much of a task.
Right. I think that's a great answer. We have a question from Shravani Sakpal, who is asking how to prepare oneself for entering the business development space during law school years. So somebody, what can somebody do while they're still at law school if they are interested in this space?
Come intern with us. I'm just joking. So
Well, I think that's a good advice. How do people apply for an internship with you?
write to me on my email ID.
Okay. Do you
Write to
want to
me
share
on
your email
LinkedIn.
ID on air? Would you like to share your email ID on air?
Uh, of course, I'm very comfortable too. It's
Okay.
Tanisha, Tanisha dot Deshpande, Deshpande 07 @gmail.com. So write in to me. You can even send me a message on LinkedIn. Happy to connect.
Okay, sure.
But
Any other?
to answer the question, I think start reading. You may or may not have access to an internship wherever, whichever city you are in this space. But I think start reading online, start following thought leaders on LinkedIn and other platforms who talk about this. There are some very interesting books written. We'll be happy to share a list of names of books that you can read. Start reading blogs online. Follow these thought leaders and sort of learn from what they have to say. Another good way to do it is write in, to individual BD professionals to see if they can help you in some way. So start building that network right now. I think that's a reading, self motivation will be the only way to do it.
Fantastic. So, can you suggest some blogs in this area that lawyers can follow or law students can
Sure.
follow?
So, is it okay to maybe just share a list after? Is that okay to do?
Yeah, it's all right. Like, but if you can share some, maybe not blogs, if maybe books, you can share some.
Um,
What are the blogs and books do you follow?
So I think there's a blog called BDLN that we follow. So that's a good one. Then there
BD.
is BDLN. Then Thomson Reuters has some very interesting articles on their portal. So does Mondak actually. They also have a section on learn about social media, digital marketing, all of that relevant to lawyers. Then sorry. Then there are some books. So there's one by a particular Richard Susskind. So I think that's a great book to read as well. Um, I think, yeah, broadly this for now should suffice.
Sure, sure. So if you do share a list, we'll be happy to circulate
I
it.
will. We'll do that.
Okay. So I think that's a great insight that you have shared with us today, and thank you so much for taking out your time and sharing your insights. That I mean, these are valuable insights, and we do not easily get access to such insights as lawyers, and even if those who are interested in the BD space as a career opportunity. Thank you so much for sharing such wonderful insights, and we hope to have you back again. Maybe we can take another area and deep dive into that in the future.
Definitely.
So, yes, thank you so much. And all those who watched today, thank you so much. And do subscribe to the LawSikho channel, and so that every time we do more interesting videos, you do get access to them as well. Thank you very much, everybody. Good
Thanks.
night.
Thanks, Ramanoj. Thanks everyone for watching. This was great fun. Bye.
Bye.